Hi everybody, how we doing? I'm Scott. Cricket is absent. Bo just ran up and grabbed his ball. And I hope you can hear me all right. I think part of the problem with this was, believe it or not, you have to have a microphone close to you when you talk. Ha! Go figure. So I've jacked this thing up on 3 different books. Some high-tech shit right here. Look out. Step back. Got some real high-tech stuff going on. And I'm hoping that that's going to be helpful in terms of volume. Still not as close as it should be, I think. I got to get one of those armature things that hangs, because the blue can be adjusted, can attach to one of those. And they can hang here and I can talk. Contractual obligations with the help. Okay. We're going to jump into Wikileaks. We're going to jump into Julian Assange. And we're going to do that because I have been reminded recently by Aunt Bibi. She's putting together expose of her own on Assange, Snowden, Max, Greenwald, Wikileaks, stuff like that. And she wanted to know if I had some old archived articles, because I used to write, and I didn't do this for many years. I wrote. And when WordPress unpersoned me, they erased literally thousands of articles that I wrote. So I've found what I had still archived and zapped some of that over to her. And believe it or not, after having done that and cut the grass today and all of this pops up. This is from Consortium News, which used to be good when he was still alive. But now it isn't. And they really pushed the Julian Assange WikiLeaks fucking psyop story to the hilt. So, since this popped up and I took a look at it over here, I decided I would go ahead and dive into this a little bit. Now, this is going to be kind of a deep dive. So, if you got a few minutes and you want to hang, hit pause, get yourself a nice refreshing adult beverage, perhaps. Maybe some nachos, popcorn. Come on back, sit down, make yourself comfortable, strap in. I'm going to go kind of deep on Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. For all of those of you out there who are still on the fence. Hopefully most of you are not. But some are. So let's do this. First of all, shout out to Aunt Bibi. She did a thing on Blowback Blumenthal. I call him Captain Hindsight. And she showed where she, a year ago, scooped Captain Hindsight by about a year, I guess. Maybe less. Exposing this pen name that he used, that Max Blumenthal's getting all this praise for talking about after the fact, when this Kern guy, whatever his fucking name is, Brian Patrick Kern, has left and done his fucking damage. A year ago, it would have been nice from Captain Blowback Blumenthal, Captain Hindsight. But anyway, a little hat tip to her for that. And like I said, she's going to be covering this in WikiLeaks and Blumenthal and Benghazi and a bunch of stuff, including what we're going to talk about today. Now, it is 7:41 p.m. in the evening. A slightly overcast evening here in Tampa, Florida. Those sounds are not my stomach. That is Bo chewing on his little ball, doing whatever he's doing to his ball. So don't let that distract you. So Consortium News posted this at 2:15, and I've been kind of looking at it and going over it and researching it and remembering my back and forth over the years with people like John Young from Cryptome and others who have a problem with the simple facts surrounding the creation of Wikileaks. Wikileaks is what I used to call them. Wikileaks. And Julian Assange, the glorious one, the golden child. We're going to start this. I want you to understand how these things work. Now, again, I don't work for intelligence agencies. I'm not a contractor. I'm not a special ops infiltrator. What I have gathered over the decade and a half of researching, what I have gathered has from insiders, from news reports, from everything that I have read, books, magazines, internet publishings. What I have read has formulated my opinion, my understanding of how these intelligence assets work. Do not be confused. WikiLeaks was born an intelligence agency asset. It served for many years as an intelligence agency asset, and it is still being used as an intelligence agency asset. And Julian Assange is the same. You can't be as obvious as it is. It couldn't be as obvious as it is without Julian Assange knowing exactly what role he's playing. So let's not be confused about that. This is apparently some kind of WikiLeaks Iraq war logs discussion to talk about how wonderful the WikiLeaks Iraq war logs were and how important they were. That's their real claim to fame, as they are trying to define Julian Assange as a journalist who's being extradited under the Sedition Act or whatever the fuck they want to call it. And then we have to stand behind Julian Assange. Otherwise, because if Julian Assange is fucking extradited and tried, and then it's just like it's the end for all of us and the end of the freedom of journalism, the freedom of the press. Well, that's how they portray it. And if they get enough people to believe it, when it happens, that's what it'll be. They're saying it into existence. Oh my God, if he actually has to be extradited and come back, that's the end of the freedom of the press. No, actually it isn't. Because he's not a goddamn reporter. He's not a journalist. He's a self-described white hat hacker who ended up working with Chinese dissidents at a thing called Wikileaks, Wikileaks, which was promoted by Cass Sunstein in 2007 after they had published all of one fucking thing in late 2016. One. And each and everything that he's done has been in promotion of an intelligence agency agenda. Be it a country that we want to regime change, and so we're demonizing a leader, as he has done with WikiLeaks many times in the past with Latin American leaders, that we're trying to fucking regime change. Posting straight up lies about corruption of the family and this and the other thing. we can't. I don't need to go through all of that. It's there. You can find it. Hell, you can just go to WikiLeaks' website, and it's still published. This stuff is still published. This shit is still published. Everything, and I'm going to show you this. Everything that they started off with was all in support of an intelligence agency agenda. Even the 2008 election, where right before the election they came up with an October surprise, hacked emails from fucking John McCain's campaign. Turns out they were forgeries. But an attempt to make John McCain look even worse in the run-up to the coronation of the Obama god. Again, Barack Obama was the favorite, the absolute hands-down favorite of the intelligence agencies, of all of them. He was custom-made. In fact, he was custom-made for their agenda, for their purposes. Okay? Everything that WikiLeaks did in the early days, even leading up to the Iraq War logs. Oh my God, this is the big one, the Iraq War logs. Everything they did was in support of an intelligence agency agenda. And ever since, it's been the same. Yeah, like Disinfo Jones, they'll toss some shit out there, like Max Egan, they'll toss some shit out there. But usually it's harmless. Usually it's already well known. Sometimes it's beyond harmless, and it undermines what's well known. But in almost every single case, if you look in depth at what they're doing, and that includes the collateral murder video, which I have explained before, and I will explain one more time in a few minutes, how that really isn't what you think it is. But let's start off with watching these guys. Now, they're going to work, he's going to work his way. This is, what's his face? Kristen Hanfrenson. I can't pronounce that. But this is Hanfrenson. And he is going to be railing at a speech. If you think there's anything else in the world, if you protest for this, if you protest for that, if you think we need to stop with the fucking mask, we need to do this. No! The only thing that matters is Julian Assange. Because, as this woman said at the same speech, if he's extradited, that means it's the end of freedom of press. No, it doesn't. He is an asset. Now, you can say, well, Scott, why is he being done this way? Is he being burned? Don't know. Is it because they want people to assume that this is the end of freedom of speech? You get a gold star. Let's watch a little bit of this. This is going to start us off down that little road I've got mapped out for you right here. Okay? Let's have a listen.
We have the momentum with us. Please tell everybody that you know that they have to side with Assange and fight against the extradition. If they tell you, I would rather fight for the environment or against animal cruelty or gender equality, tell them. They are about to take every right away from you. You will not be able to fight for any other cause. We are talking about the fundamentals here. We must fight against the extradition. We must save Julian Assange.
Chico! Now watch what they do. Don't extradite Assange. Follow the and retreat and give us money. Give us money. This is something. Money. Cash. Make it rain on Julian. Make it rain. This is something that has been a through line throughout the Julian Assange story. From the very beginning, when John Young said $5 million for a fucking leak site. What are you talking about? Everyone cryptome for $10,000 a year. What are you talking? $5 million. When Wikileaks shut down. And they said, we've got our stuff out there and we're going to take it offline. And they did. If they didn't get $600,000. Why? $600,000 for what? Your servers are up and running. You've already gotten rid of your advisors. What do you want $600,000 for, Julian? So you can hang out in Kenya? We'll talk about that too. Listen, this shit goes deep. We're going to have some fun. So, money. Give us the $600,000 or we'll pull this shit offline. And they did. Let me show you how this shit works. That's right, leave it up there.
Good afternoon and welcome everyone to this webinar
Ransom
by the Don't Extradite Assange campaign. My name is Christian Rapson, the editor of Wikileaks. The topic of our event today is the Iraq warlords, released by Wikileaks on 22nd of October 2010, of the largest leak in military history. What was published that day was 391,832 field reports from the US military covering all events in Iraq up until 2009. It was the diary of the war. Never before had people seen such a detailed evaluation by the military itself on what went on. Wikileaks was working in an alliance with several media at the time. One of the media partners was the Bureau of Investigative Journalism in London, which put all its efforts and its journalists working on going through these files and mining out stories from it. They produced content for media, including documentaries for Channel 4 and for Al Jazeera, English and Arabic. Other media partners were The Guardian in London, Der Spiegel in Germany, the New York Times in the US, and Le Monde in France, and several others, including Swedish national television. Now, I have two guests here today.
Now, this was their biggie. This was their big claim to fame. This is what got them all the attention and all the focus and really made them into WikiLeaks. They needed something big because something bigger was already out there. Now, I'm not going to scroll down on this. This is from Wired, and this is from March of 2008. 2008. These are the Abu Ghraib photos that were really leaks. These photos were compiled by people at a prison where we kept detainees and tortured them, killed them in some cases, and treated them exceedingly badly during the occupation of Iraq. The Abu Ghraib photos screamed for attention, and they got it. And what happened was, yes, they had a leaked site called WikiLeaks, but they really didn't do anything. I mean, like I said, the fucking fake emails from John McCain. You know, we'll take a look at some of the African leaders that WikiLeaks helped get rid of, helped the intelligence agencies get rid of. They really weren't that, and no one was paying attention. No one was actually leaking stuff. They needed something big. They needed a big play to get into the fucking playing field, where instead of someone going to Wired or someone going to The Guardian or Independent or, 9/11 Blogger with whatever they fucking had, they would instead go to Wikileaks. And then, of course, what would happen? Wikileaks is what's called a honeypot. Basically, somebody has something like, let's say, disturbing new photos from Abu Ghraib. And they want to go and they want to get them out there to the people to see. And, of course, they believe, because Wikileaks is the king of all fucking leaked media, they contact Wikileaks, they put it in their fucking Dropbox, and they say, okay, it's going to get out there to the public. And it never goes anywhere. And out of nowhere, this dude gets picked up in the black fucking van and a black bag put on his fucking head, and he's gone. Why? Because even though they claim that you could drop stuff in their Dropbox and they'll never know who it is or who it came from, it's completely anonymous. It wasn't. It wasn't. If you did something like that and it was something like this, you'd be gone. And these photos would never have been seen had they been dropped in a Dropbox of Wikileaks. Why? Key leaks. That's a fact. They needed something big. And what they got in 2010 were the Iraq war logs. We're going to talk about that. But he just told you something very interesting. People think that WikiLeaks and Julian Assange are so counter establishment and the intelligence agencies are out to get him. Let me tell you something. If these people, Ransom or Assange or anybody else working for WikiLeaks, was actually posing a threat to what they're doing overseas, they were doing something other than helping them demonize leaders they want to get rid of. If they were posing a real threat, do you actually think those servers would still be up and they'd still be fucking work? Do you think he'd still be alive? Do you think Ransom would be able to go fucking give a speech, a compelling speech, and give us your money, for God's sake? Do you think he could actually do that? Do you? Because I don't. It's childish to think that these people, because what? They're in a different country? Our fucking wet work guys can't find them? That's childish. That's moronic. They kill people all the fucking time. They drag people off to places like Abu Ghraib all the fucking time. So these people would be gone if they were doing anything other than helping them fucking with the establishment line. And to further prove that, what did they do with their fucking big Iraq war logs leaks that got them all this attention? What did they do? Well, they got together with Der Spiegel, establishment Germany, El Paz, establishment fucking Spain, Washington Post, CIA fucking asset, establishment United States, New York Times, establishment United States, Guardian, establishment UK. Really, all the Five Eyes countries are kind of represented here. Australia, they said they worked with somebody in Australia too. All the Five Eyes countries. They worked with their leading establishment periodicals and news publications. And how did they work with them? They went through the 300,000 files and decided, okay, this one's in, that one's out, this one's in, that one's out, that one's out, this one's in. They did that. There was an interview with somebody a year ago when they were trying to push for Julian Assange's freedom. He's a hero. He's just a guy from the Bronx. And the guy said, who was one of the ones who was working with the New York Times publishing this stuff, he said that what they did and what they did at Der Spiegel and what they did at fucking The Guardian and what they did at Washington Post was all the same. they had a section, they got a group of these things that would help sell their papers. But before they published them, after they went through and said, yeah, that's too much, or that's not enough, we'll get rid of that. Then they had to go and take them to somebody else to have them sign off on it. You know who they went to? They went to the Pentagon, the State Department, and the Obama administration. And they said, okay, these are the ones we want to publish. What do you think? And they said, this one's in, that one's out, that one's out, this one's in, that one's out, that one's out. And we're going to and the ones that were in, redact this, redact this, redact this, redact this. Here you go. Here's your leak. Here's your truth. That's what happened. That's not hyperbole. That's not a conspiracy thing. That's how it worked. They just said it right there. 10 years ago, Wikileaks published Iraq War logs along with the New York Times, the Guardian, El Paso, Washington Post, and other outlets. Der Spiegel. He just said it. He just said it. They worked with the establishment. They mentioned, the fucking Pentagon papers. It was the same. Many of the fucking Pentagon papers, in case you don't know, were forgeries. But they also went through the Pentagon papers and decided this one's in, that one's out, that one's out, this one's, oh God, that one's definitely out. It was an establishment operation. It wasn't John Young at Cryptome. Okay, we get a fucking leak. Someone gives us this. We have to authenticate the fact, who are you? Who is this individual? Does he have credibility? Is he assigned to a fucking intelligence agency? Does this fucking stuff make sense? Okay, it does. This makes sense. That, okay, we'll publish it. They don't fucking ask the New York Times to ask the Pentagon if they can fucking do it without redacting something. They just do it. But they verify, which is a key aspect. One of the first things that Assange, glorious Assange, one of the first things that he did when he came out with his stupid Wikileaks in December of 2006 was he said, we're just going to be a Dropbox. And you can just drop it in there and we'll publish it. And then they asked John Young to come on board because it would give them some credibility because he was already running Cryptome. And Young said, that seems like a strange way to do this. You can't really do that because what you're doing is you're setting yourself up to be used by intelligence agencies. They will drop disinformation and propaganda in your Dropbox and you'll just publish it. And of course, Julian Assange didn't want to hear any of that. And so John Young said, in all likelihood, this is probably a CIA operation. That was John Young's opinion back in the day. He did an interview on Democracy Now! Now, full disclosure, John Young and I have had communication on my website, all above board in the comment section. When I wrote an article eons ago, and I mentioned that that was John Young's position. He came back after he has changed his mind a bit. We'll talk about that in a minute. And said, oh, no. I never said it was an operation. I said, yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. You certainly implied it. And you know damn well you did. John Young changed his tune. Then he changed it back. Don't know what was said to him or why he would change his tune, but he did. Point is, you can't run a fucking operation like that. That's what WikiLeaks started out doing. Because you're going to be used. It's so shady, and this is just the first part. This is I even delved into Cass Sunstein or Kenya. I haven't delved into any of that, or fucking the NED guy from China, who is now publishing lies about China, trying to force a regime change in China, and has spent his whole career doing that, who was on their board of advisors, helped get them set up. I haven't delved into that yet, and it's so goddamn shady. You look at it and go, wow. Let me show you how disinformation works.
To talk about this release and the importance of it, both in terms of content and on journalism in a broader sense, because never before had such a broad alliance of media from several countries been brought together and work together on a single project. The stories were very noteworthy. They included such things as previously unreported civilian deaths, which were monitored by the US military but not released publicly. 15,000 deaths were unreported publicly. What were in those files? It included very many events of civilian killings, such as at checkpoints, where I believe 700 events were found where people were killed at the US checkpoints because the people didn't stop too early or were driving too fast, according to the estimate that was been.
Because people were driving too fast to the checkpoints. This is... I'm not sure I can finish this. I'm in pain. Maybe I'd do this in two parts. I'll do this in two parts. I'll stop it in a second, and then I'll come back and I'll make the second part because it's already 30 minutes. So let's do it in two parts. Notice what he just said. People were killed at the checkpoints because they were driving up too fast or they didn't obey orders, but they were killed in the checkpoints. It's always the disclaimer. It's always the disclaimer. They put it, they talk about this couple that drove up to the thing and they said, stop. And they were driving too fast and he shot him in the fucking tire and he was driving too fast still. So then they opened fire on him and killed him, and they were unarmed civilians. Killed 2 unarmed civilians. But what's the disclaimer? They said stop. He didn't stop. They shot him in the fucking wheel. They didn't stop. They gave him every opportunity, but then they had to shoot him. Everything has a disclaimer, including collateral murder video. You just heard him say that because of them, they added 15,000 to the official tally of the numbers of killed. This is in 2010. He made this video now, but in 2010, they had added 15,000 to the official tally of numbers of civilians killed in Iraq, which brought the number up to 65,000. 65,000 civilians total killed from 2003 to 2010. Total 65,000. Quote, estimates of the casualties of the conflict in Iraq beginning in the 2003 invasion of Iraq, based on lies, and in the ensuing occupation and insurgency, have come in several forms, and those estimates of different types of Iraq war casualties vary greatly. Estimating war-related deaths pose many challenges. Experts distinguish between population-based studies, which extrapolate from random samples of the population, and body counts, which tally reported deaths and likely significantly underestimate casualties. Population-based studies produced estimates of the number of the Iraq War casualties ranging from 150, please don't hit that, 151,000, please don't hit that, violent deaths as of June 2006, per the Iraq Family Health Survey, to over 1 million per the 2007 Opinion Research Business ORB survey. Other survey-based studies covering different time spans find between 461,000 total deaths, 60% of them from violence, as of June 2011, per the PLOS Medicine Magazine 2013, and 655,000 total deaths, over 90% of them violent, as of June 6, per the 2006 Lancet study. Body counts counted at least 110,000 violent deaths as of April 2009, the Associated Press. And the Iraq Body Count Project documents 185,000 to 208,000 violent civilian deaths through February 2020. So, there they are, WikiLeaks, with their great fucking truth that they added 15,000 deaths to the official count, which got that count up to 65,000. Less than half of the average of all of these different very scientific studies. And what is he basing that on? He's basing that on reports generated by the military. In some cases, reports generated by the military which lie. But that's the official number because WikiLeaks says so, 65,000. Nope, it's not 655,000. It's 65,000. Everything it does, including the collateral murder video, including the Iraq war logs, everything it does is there in support of an intelligence agency agenda. In this case, in downplaying the fucking civilian deaths, it's in support of the occupation and the continued occupation of Iraq. Some believe that over 1 million have been killed. I'm one of them. But these, the Lancet study, even the Associated Press, Iraq Body Count Project, these are Iraq Family Health Surveys. These are studious and well-documented studies that put that number way past 65,000. But there you go, WikiLeaks. And they'll tell you in a few seconds, everything we've ever published is true. Everything. It's all true. They hate us. If they really hated you, if they really hated Julian Assange, why is he still alive? If they really hated WikiLeaks, why is WikiLeaks still around? Why is Ransom still fucking asking for money? There he is. That'd be like fucking Bin Laden giving a speech in London on the street asking for money.
Several things of that nature that I'm sure that my co-panelists here today will mention in their talk. But I would just want to mention before we go ahead that the importance of the Iraq war log is also noteworthy because they are one of the major foundations of the indictment against Julian Assange, who is now facing 18 counts. 17 of them are based on an archaic legal structure called the Espionage Act, never before used against a journalist. So the case of Julian Assange and the importance to fight against his extradition from the UK to the United States is extremely important, not just on a personal level, but...
What is that? Washington Post. The indictment of Assange is a blueprint for making journalists into felons. What did I say? That's the whole point. That's the Washington Post. That's the CIA's fucking Washington Post. People who are opposed to the establishment, who are out there front and center fighting against the goddamn imperial nature of this goddamn country and the Pentagon and the fucking intelligence agencies, They don't get front page fucking glowing fucking reviews on the Washington Post. It doesn't happen. They get quietly bumped off.
Because of the implication it will have for the future of journalism if he is extradited. Now, we will be taking questions later on after I introduce my panelists and give them a few minutes each to talk. You can write your questions on the Q&A on Zoom or deliver the questions to us via social media where we picked up my colleagues. Now, let me introduce the panelists.
Leaks and the logs and that had obviously partnered with The Guardian and another print. But the Bureau...
okay, so you see where that's going. Of course, they got the collateral murder video in there. They got all this stuff. Okay. 65,000. Right off the bat, the very first thing. And here they are, again, in this write-up here. They talk about the logs showed the true numbers of civilian deaths in Iraq. At least 15,000 more people had died than previously thought. Well, I hadn't clicked on that link. Let's see what that comes from. I don't know where's the number. Well, that's totally different than the 65,000 he mentioned before. Now it's up to 288,000. Right. That's the number. But that had nothing to do with fucking... They didn't fucking add 15,000. This guy's talking about 65,000 at the time of when the Iraq War Logs video came out, which, as I've already shown you, is not even fucking close to being accurate. That's, again, underplaying. And for a reason. What a start. Let's start at the beginning. Wikileaks kicked off in 2006, in December of 2006. And they had a great fucking story about a rebel leader. A decision to assassinate Somali government official signed by a rebel leader. The rebel leader was a politician in Somalia who didn't go along with the United States. And in fact, he was called a terrorist because he didn't go along with the United States and he opposed what we are doing in Somalia. And so, of course, the very first publication from Wikileaks demonizes that individual in support of U.S. intelligence agencies' agenda. But that, of course, was in 2001. For some reason, they went way back in time to publish some bullshit, dropped, leaked document from him. In 2007, August of 2007, was their second fucking leak. And that's The Guardian published a story about corruption of the family of the former, by the family of the former Kenyan leader, Daniel Arap Moi. Daniel Arap Moi was somebody who we really wanted to get rid of. And so, of course, the story that we got from Wikileaks was that he was corrupt. And of course, The Guardian picked up that leak in August of 2007 and published it and ran with it, once again, in support of a regime change operation from the past. That was it. From December 2006 to August 2007, nothing. Nothing. And in fact, the only thing that really had done was talk about a guy, a politician in fucking in Somalia, that they wanted to get rid of. They wanted to call him a terrorist. And that was it. That's all they did. Nothing else. Until August of 2007. Well, lo and behold, February of 2007, Cass Sunstein penned this for the Washington Post. Quote, in the private domain, businesses are adopting wikis to compile information about products, profits, and new developments. The Autism Wiki, produced mostly by adults with autism and Asperger's syndrome, contains material on autism and related conditions. Wikileaks.org, founded by dissidents in China and other nations, plans to post secret government documents and protect them from censorship with coded software. End quote. Here's Cass Sunstein. Of all people, here's Cass Sunstein. You can look up his name in relation to 9/11. You can look up his name in terms of being Barack Obama's regulations czar. You can also look him up in terms of the term conspiracy theory. You can look him up in terms of the term cognitive dissonance and cognitive infiltration. Cass Sunstein is a very interesting insider with very close connections to State Department, Obama administration, intelligence agencies, CIA, DIA, NED. He's if you don't know who Cass Sunstein is, I can't explain it to you in this video because we're already at 46-minute mark. But I can say it is odd that such an outsider who threatens to publish documents that make our government look bad is being promoted in the Washington Post by someone of the stature of Cass Sunstein. He ends up in the fucking Obama administration 2 years after he writes this. And he wrote about cognitive infiltration of dissident groups a year after. So please do yourself a favor and look up Cass Sunstein. I'll post links to all of this stuff down below. Okay? Notice what he says here. Wikileaks.org, founded by dissidents in China and other nations. Dissidents in China. Keep that in mind, would you please? Now, that's February 2007. WikiLeaks really doesn't go here and just look at the fucking shit that they actually produced. They had published jack fucking shit. Some stuff on Scientology. Ooh, that's cutting edge. Fake John McCain fucking documents, emails, detailing his strategy for his campaign, which were fake. Okay, they were fake. But again, look who that's in the service of. Sarah Palin. They definitely were taking a side in 2008. And then nothing. Jack fucking shit. Barclays Bank, which was a whole bunch of nothing. Joint Service Protocol 404, which is nothing. It's Icelandic financial crisis stuff, which was trying to demonize Iceland. Remember the whole pigs thing? You remember that? Nothing. Nothing. Until 2010. Until the Iraq War logs. Just keep that in mind. This is from Mother Jones, and this was written by Dave Gilson in May of 2010. This is after the Iraq War logs. I want to read this for you so you get a better understanding of this. Quote, there's a lot of people who like to shut down WikiLeaks, the now famous whistleblower site that recently posted a video of 2 journalists being gunned down by a U.S. helicopter in Iraq. But so far, the only group that's ever taken down WikiLeaks is WikiLeaks itself. Earlier this year, the site's giant repository of leaked documents and most of the mirror sites went dark as a part of a $600,000 fundraising drive. It's a bit ironic considering the one of WikiLeaks' claim to fame was that it once that once it posts a document, quote, it is essentially impossible to censor, end quote. For more than 5 months, if you wanted to pursue its exclusive stash of Scientology tracks, Sarah Palin hacked emails, or Guantanamo detainee manuals, you were out of luck. Now the fundraiser is over, and WikiLeaks' main site has emerged from hibernation, and all the old documents appear to still be there, but there are some notable changes. Okay. So, right after they came out with their Iraq logs, war logs, the ones that this guy is sitting here, going, oh my God, we're so wonderful. You got to save Assange because the Iraq war logs thing was out there, and oh my God, it changed everything. We're committing fucking war crimes in Iraq, as if we needed WikiLeaks to tell us that. Remember, they're 2 years after Abu Ghraib. And in fact, there were a lot of other ones that came out that were leaked out before Abu Ghraib. Okay? In one case, there was a case where a platoon had gone in at night to a village because an insurgency had set off a roadside bomb which killed one of the platoon members 3 days before. They come in the middle of the night. It's a small village. They don't believe that the people in the village set the IED. However, they fly in all these fucking helicopters, and they come in loud. They come in fucking with lights on, scaring the shit out of people, and they slaughter people. And in some cases, they dug their bullets out, and they piled up bodies in the fucking families, and they burned them to get rid of the evidence. And then they left. This wasn't an accident. This was sending a message. And the message was, if you, as a village, allow you see these fucking assholes over here setting this fucking IED up, and you don't tell us, and someone gets killed, we're going to come lay waste to your whole village. It's a scorched earth type of fucking counter-terrorism or counter-guerrilla warfare tactic. They hurt us, we're going to fucking wipe out the whole village. And to give you an example of that, if you go back to the original Red Dawn, or even the new Red Dawn, whichever one, they both have the same fucking thing in them. If you go back to the original Red Dawn, there's a scene in there like that, where the Chinese or the North Koreans or the Russians, depending on which version you're watching, the Wolverines attack, and they are running their guerrilla campaign. And so what these guys do is the same thing we did. They get fucking towns members out there and they start shooting them to send a message to the townsfolk and to the insurgents. There's a price for what you're doing. Okay? That was out. We knew we were committing war crimes in Iraq. We didn't need Julian Assange or Ransom or WikiLeaks, Wikileaks, to tell us these things. We didn't. We knew it. There was Abu Ghraib, there was that story, there were many others. Moving on to another article here from Mother Jones. This one, published, I think, in 2010. Notice the fucking drugs. Click and Dagger. David Kushner. That's the one that he's referenced in that previous thing. I'm really not feeling good. The clock struck 3 a.m. Julian Assange slept soundly inside a private compound in Nairobi, Kenya. Suddenly, 6 men with guns emerged from the darkness. A day earlier, as Assange tells it, they had disabled the alarm on the electric fence and buried weapons by the pool. I don't know why. I guess the 6 men did. Catching a guard by surprise, they commanded him to hit the ground. He obliged momentarily, then jumped up and began shouting. And as the rest of the compound security team rushed outside, the intruders fled into the night. Assange, a 30-something Australian with a shock of snow-white hair, is sure the armed men were after him. Quote, "There was not anyone else worth visiting in the compound," he told me last year, speaking on the phone from an undisclosed location in Africa. Turns out, was Assange's paranoia justified? Perhaps. A few weeks before the raid, in August 2007, his website, Wikileaks, had posted a document exposing corruption at the highest levels of the Kenyan government. Still, this is one of many plausible yet unverifiable tales of persecution told by Assange, who has established himself as the world's most famous source of secret information and the exclusive public face of Wikileaks, the uncensorable Wikipedia for untraceable mass document leaking and analysis. Why is that interesting? That is interesting because in 2007, this is when he said he was there. This is the story from 2007, he told him. He was in Kenya and publishing. Remember, this is when he's in Kenya, Nairobi, and he is publishing stuff that is detrimental to the government that is in power. The government that is in power won an election. There was our candidate of choice lost. Our candidate of choice claimed that the elections were rigged. Of course, the EU jumped on board. The United Kingdom also jumped on board with that. At first, the United States said, well, but then we also jumped on board with that because we wanted that leader out. And who was helping get rid of that fucking leader? None other than Wikileaks. Everything we've ever published is true. That was false. Just like the 65,000 dead civilians up till 2010 was false, demonstrably false, so too was this. No, the story he told is the same bullshit fucking story that journalists will fucking use all the time. And say, oh my God, I was attacked, I was kidnapped, I was disappeared. Actually, they're in a hotel someplace doing hookers and doing blow. And 3 days later, they come back in with a story and they go, oh my God, they raped me anally 100 times with an elephant. And of course, it demonizes the targeted official. And all he is a whistleblower. A whistleblower who just happens to be in the middle of fucking Kenya and Nairobi hanging out with the opposition people and publishing leaks that make the fucking elected governor or the elected president or whatever prime minister look bad in support of a regime change operation that was being pushed by EU, UK, and of course eventually the United States. Are you with me so far? Good. Let's scroll down through this. This is a good thing from Mother Jones, and I'll post it for those of you who want to take a look at it. Okay. In this, he talks about several of the people who were supported. He talked about his $600,000 budget, blah, blah, blah. Several of the people who were listed for the first several years on the website as contributors, contributing to the creation of Wikileaks. One of them is an individual. Hang on a second. That I wanted to talk about. If I can find him. Hang on. Wesley Snipes' tax return. Maybe it's not in this one. Hang on. Give me a second. Might be in the other one. No, it's in this one. Yeah, it is. He's talking about the idea for it here. Here we go. When I contacted the impressive figures who'd been listed on WikiLeaks' advisory board, some didn't know exactly why they were named. They wanted to distance themselves from it, even though they were listed on the board for 3 or 4 years. One guy was a former representative of the Dalai Lama. If you don't know what the Dalai Lama is and the Dalai Lama's connection to the CIA, you're shit out of luck. Another guy was this guy, Xiao Quang, who's a Chinese democracy activist, says he exchanged emails with Assange, but little more. After this article was originally published, WikiLeaks removed its advisory board from an updated version of its website, got rid of them. One of the reasons is Xiao Quang, whatever his name is, I'm sorry, was listed, who really didn't want a whole lot of attention to what he had done for WikiLeaks. Xiao Quang, I'm sorry, I'm trying, was a theoretical physicist by training. Apparently a brilliant dude. He studied at the University of Science and Technology of China and entered the PhD program in astrophysics at the University of Notre Dame. Apparently he's a very bright dude. He became a full-time human rights activist after the Tiananmen Square massacre of 1989. Zhao was the executive director of the New York-based organization Human Rights in China from 1991 to 2002 and vice chairman of the steering committee for the World Movement for Democracy. What is the World Movement for Democracy? The World Movement for Democracy is an international network of individuals and organizations who share the common goal of promoting democracy, regime change. The World Movement was launched in February 1999 when the National Endowment for Democracy and 2 non-governmental organizations put money into them. He's a fucking intelligence agency asset. He's one of the founding fucking members who helped set up WikiLeaks, and we go back to Cass Sunstein. Wikileaks.org, founded by dissidents in China. Get it? Please get it. It's not hard. We're going to end with this, and I'm going to tell you a story about collateral murder. One last time. Same article from Mother Jones. Quote, John Young, founder of pioneering whistleblower site Krypton, was an early skeptic. He leaked his correspondence with WikiLeaks in which he declared it a fraud and bizarrely hinted the site was a CIA data mining operation. Stop for a second. Let's go back to the very beginning and what I said about my conversation with John Young. I don't make shit up. Going back, quote, fuck your cute hustle and disinformation campaign against legitimate dissent. Same old shit working for the enemy, end quote, he wrote. Assange reverently describes Krypton as WikiLeaks' spiritual godfather sucking up to him, and Young now expresses admiration for WikiLeaks. Yet he adds that the site is totally untrustworthy for information, but fabulous entertainment. End quote. I get punchy, I guess, at 8 o'clock. Is it 8:45? Oh, my God. It's an hour. I'm going to tell you a story. Remember when I pointed out what he said about, oh my God, they were driving up and they didn't count these two people in the car, and they kept coming and they said, hey, stop, and they kept coming faster, and they shot the wheels up, and they kept coming faster, and they had to shoot them, and they had 2 more dead civilians, but they didn't count them. Whose fault was that? Did he talk about going in there and wiping out a whole village to send a message? Digging the fucking bullets out of the bodies and setting fire to them? Children? Women? No. In that video, he talks about a situation where you could easily understand why an 18-year-old with a goddamn AR-15 told to defend the fucking... because people drive cars with bombs in them. Stop, no, baby. Oh, fuck! Is it the fog of war? Possibly. Is it understandable? Of course. But is it the best example? Well, if you're getting the Pentagon and the State Department and the intelligence agencies to pick your leaks, I guess it is the best fucking example because they're the ones who picked it. Do you understand? Now, let's go to their big money, the money shot. The collateral murder video. Last time I hope I ever have to explain this to people. Did it depict civilians being killed and 2 journalists being killed and 2 kids being shot in a van by a gunship, 2 gunships flying overhead? Gunships, helicopters. Raining down fucking these mega fucking 60 millimeter fucking cannon rounds on these fucking people. Does it depict that? Yes. But keeping in mind who picks their leaks, was it justifiable? Yes. Why? Watch the fucking video. The story is that there was a platoon coming up the street. They had already engaged in an insurgency, had been fired upon, and the insurgency was playing hit and run, hit and run, hit and run. They called in air support because they were getting tore up. And the job of the air support, the 2 helicopters who were flying like this in front of where they were going to fucking make sure these guys weren't hiding around corners to shoot them, that's what their job was. And what did they see? They saw a group of men, some carrying AK-47s, as security people would do, hired by journalists, in a war zone. And they were watching them, and one of them is looking around the fucking corner, and he takes out his fucking camera, which has a lens on it that's that fucking long and that big, and he peeks it around the camera, and one of them yells, RPG, RPG, RPG. What do I do? What do I do? And he's waiting for authorization to engage. The last picture on the roll of that fucking film was of those soldiers coming up the fucking street and their fucking Humvee. Which means that camera that was that big, the lens sticking out from behind the wall, watch the goddamn thing. With the opening that big, a lens that big on it, was pointing right at them. And eventually, the guy said, light him up. He got authorization. And he did. And they said, oh my God, they were laughing when they were shooting them. Laughing when they were shooting civilians. How terrible. They weren't shooting civilians. In their eyes, in their minds, at that moment, they were shooting the people who were shooting their fellow fucking soldiers, their brothers in arms. So yeah, they were laughing. A couple of them had AK-47s, and one of them had what the guy misunderstood, because he was at 10,000 feet, to be a fucking RPG. He did what he was supposed to do. Go back and watch it. That is what happened. A van comes along, some adult male, two jump out of the van, and they try to get survivors. They light up the van, and they light up the two fucking males. Because in their minds, these are insurgent supporters who are trying to get them off the battlefield to save their lives, to put them back into the battlefield later. They light them up. If you continue to watch the video, when that group gets to the scene minutes later, one of them comes to understand that there are children in the van. And you can see the guy grab the fucking girl. There's two. A girl and a boy. Grab the girl and run her. He runs. And that one grabs the other. And he runs. Because they're concerned about the kids. And they put him in a fucking vehicle. And they take him to and they save their lives. But the guys in the helicopter didn't know that. They filmed it later, but they didn't know that. And they felt horrible about what they had done. Most people stop watching the fucking video at that point because that's what they want you to see. Something happens after, which is really interesting and is actually possibly a war crime. Turns out the same fucking helicopter views about 20 minutes later two guys who could have very easily been the real insurgents that they were looking for in the first place run into a building. They call it in. And they sit there and watch. And they sit there and watch. Several civilians walk into the same building. It's an apartment building. They called in a fucking drone strike and hit it with a Hellfire missile and killed a bunch of people in the fucking building. That was a crime. Because they knew the civilians had gone in. And they told them. But what you see, and what was edited to be the original fucking collateral murder video, isn't what you are allowed or told to think it is. That's why they picked it. They didn't pick a torture scene from fucking, the guys who supposedly were the masterminds of 9/11. They didn't release that video. They didn't show you that video from that fucking that helicopter raid in the middle of the night on that village to send a fucking message, digging their fucking bullets out of bodies and burning fucking women and children, the bodies of women and children, to get rid of their evidence. They didn't show that video. They showed collateral murder. They showed that video. Why? Because yes, it shows the horror of fucking war, and it shows a mistake, and it shows fucking the fog of war. But is it a war crime? No. Why? Because those people in the helicopters were operating on the best fucking information and knowledge that they had, and they were trying to protect their other soldiers. And there were, in fact, other fucking insurgents in the area who had been shooting at them minutes before. That's why nobody was prosecuted with the collateral murder video. Because what happened wasn't a crime. But it was flashy. It was exciting. It was blood. Kids got shot. And reporters. So that's what they went with. But it was carefully selected. Carefully selected. Was it the worst that they could possibly come up with? Bull fucking shit. But it served a purpose, and it didn't indict the military in Iraq. If anything, it indicted the fucking fog of war. Okay? That is what WikiLeaks is. That is what WikiLeaks does. Eons ago, John Young argued with me over whether or not he had actually said that he thought it was a CIA operation. But he did. Because it was. It is. And it always will be. I hope you guys have a very good evening. Thank you for your time.